All right, now we move on over to the Insight Bowl with the Iowa State Cyclones. Really? I mean, think about that real quick for a second. At the beginning of this season, with a new coach, Gene Chizik leaving that program in shambles. I mean, trying to put in a new offense where it was a spread offense, where at a place like Iowa State where you're not getting the recruits that a lot of people do, I mean, you need the right kind of people to play that system of offense. And Gene Chizik just all of a sudden up and leaves. Paul Rhodes comes in, goes 6-6. Never in a million years would I would have thought that.
One of the reasons they were 6-6 and surprised a lot of people this year is the fact that they fell back on the running game like they used to. And when they had some success under Coach McCarney, they were a team that ran the ball first and threw second. And they're back to doing that again as opposed to what they were doing with Gene Chizik.
Remind me real quick, is Arnaud a junior or senior this year?
That's a good question. I couldn't answer that.
I guess I'll have to look that up real quick.
It doesn't seem like he would be a senior at this point, I will say that.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because I think this game is going to be a statement game more for Iowa State than it is for Minnesota. Now, granted, Minnesota has been a team that they've been on the edge of becoming a better team. They've been on kind of that lower tier of the Big Ten, which the Big Ten the last couple of years hasn't been anything to be proud of. But I think Iowa State, you throw it all out the window and you just go after this game. And you know what? If it takes Arnaud just grabbing the ball and running, this is the game where you let him go.
They better figure something out as far as the running game goes, because as we have seen with Minnesota, they are pretty stout at stopping the run. They can stop the run. And as far as Minnesota's offense goes, they're in a transition. They used to be that team that, one or two, sometimes two stud running backs, and they relied heavily on that running game. Now they've got more of a spread formation. Their running back, not terrible, but they're not doing the job necessarily on the ground. And Adam Weber, for that matter, the quarterback for Minnesota, prone to turnovers, which is big for Iowa State. It could be a big key to a Cyclone victory here.
Yeah, the other thing about this game, I mean, you look at the offense and defensive stats of Iowa State. Offense, 31 touchdowns this season, 359.4 yards per game, and most of it coming through the air. I think this is a game, and coming through the air against their defense, that is Minnesota's, they give up 217. I think this is a game where Iowa State, honestly, Iowa State's defense, I'm not really that impressed with. They've had a couple good games here and there, one against Nebraska, which, some of that may have been on Nebraska's offense, and a couple of their other games, but I'm not as sold on their defense as I am on their offense.
Here's the number one thing for Iowa State. If they can't get Alexander Robinson going, if they can't get him going early, and they rely more on Austin Arnaud's arm, could be tough sledding for Iowa State. They're not a great come-from-behind team.
No, they're not. And they're just, I mean, this isn't a bowl game where you're not going to have that huge come-from-behind thing. I think whoever gets ahead in this game first is going to be the one that is probably going to win. It's not a given, but in this game, I mean, if Minnesota gets off to a good start, I mean, do you really think it's within Iowa State's power to come from behind?
Considering Minnesota's history in bowl games recently,
never mind.
Iowa State has a very good chance of winning this game. There's no question about it. But when Minnesota has the ball, they don't have those stud runners this year. They have Adam Weber, who is prone to turnovers, and if Adam Weber turns the ball over quite a bit, I don't see Minnesota even coming close in this game. However, here's the key for Minnesota on offense. The fact that they're still missing Eric Decker with that foot injury, season ending, that is huge. If they had Eric Decker, this would be a completely different conversation, I can tell you. But I think Adam Weber, a lot of quick three-step drops, a lot of slants. I think they can beat those linebackers who are trying to cover those wide receivers when they spread that formation out. And I think those slant patterns and short drops by Adam Weber, coupled with that two-headed rushing attack Minnesota's got, that could be the difference for them.
The spread on this game is 2.5 in Minnesota's favor. That means no one knows what's going to happen, man.
No, and you know what? I would actually be surprised, given the strength of the victories Iowa State has had this year, including a win in Lincoln, which is the first time they've done that since 1977.
Yeah, it doesn't help when, you fumble 5 times inside the red zone and stuff.
And I think they had 8 turnovers total in that game.
It was something
ridiculous.
Insane like that.
Yeah. Minnesota, on the other hand, I don't even think I could tell you who they beat this year. I don't know if they have
A marquee victory.
Something they can hang their hats on.
They had a win over at Syracuse, which no one cares about. They played California tough.
Till the fourth quarter.
They beat Northwestern, which is always a trick to do, especially if you're Iowa. They beat Purdue, who did beat Ohio State at one point. Michigan State, that's a huge win for them, and they beat their last win of the season was South Dakota State,
which was like Iowa's win over UNI. One of those, where did that come from?
Yeah,
moments.
Exactly. So then they lost to Iowa 12-0.
This is a tough one to call. Iowa State, Minnesota, very close on paper. If you look at the stats, offense versus defense, one way or the other, very close. I think the strength of Iowa State's schedule is probably
a little bit better
than Minnesota's, I think, overall. So I don't know. I might have to actually give the edge to Iowa State in this one, and I think they could end up winning the game by a couple of touchdowns, to be quite honest with you, because again, Adam Weber prone to those turnovers.
I think this is a game where you release Austin Arnott. You let him run, you let him throw, and you unleash him, and you just keep pounding on this Minnesota team, because I think this is a Minnesota team that if you morally break them in the first half, you have this game won.
That's one of the dimensions. Interesting you point that out. One of the dimensions of the Iowa State offense that I thought was missing this year. And I think Arnott's pretty good on his feet. But in years past, especially in the McCarney years, you would see the quarterbacks take off and run more than the running backs a lot of times.
Yeah, I think it's more that spread offense thing that you need him to stay back there for a good chunk of the game. And he is a junior.
There you go.
I mean, okay, think about it this way. You release Austin Arnott for this game, right? You let him go and you let him pound on this. And then he has that good feeling going into spring and going into his senior year. Because, honestly, Austin Arnott is a better quarterback than Iowa State as a team.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that.
Because he was up for that same award that a bunch of the really good top quarterbacks were. And off the top of my head, I can't think of what it is, but he's a better quarterback than that team, and I think he can become a real leader.
They just have to find a system to fit his skill set.
Exactly. So the spread on this game is 2.5. I think Iowa State morally breaks Minnesota and wins possibly by 14, 17 points.
I would agree. I think Iowa State's got the capability of beating him by a couple of touchdowns. However, it could swing the other way, too, depending on how Iowa State's running game gets going. And if Austin Arnaud turns the ball over quite a bit, this could be a long day for Iowa State. As I mentioned, not a great come-from-behind team.
I think they got the ball rolling, though, right now. They have the momentum going into this.
I would agree, and that's why I take Iowa State by 13 points.
13? Well, we all know how good my bowl record is the last couple years.
And mine has been actually very good.
And we agree on this, so who knows what's going to happen. All right, coming up in segment 2, after these commercial breaks, which are no commercial breaks because this is YouTube, we'll get into the BCS schedule and break down those games, including the national championship game on the, what is this called, the Andy and B-Sox College Bowl preview.
Absolutely, let's do it.